Milo, let me call on you next, but before that, let me challenge all of you to be thinking also about what you think are the greatest strengths and what your hopes are for the future of the movement. And we have, yes, Earthren, some microphones, and perhaps after the panel has concluded its remarks, we have a little time. Perhaps we can ask any of you to share your thoughts as well. Milo.
Thank you, Tony, and it's a real honor to be here today with all of you. I come from a country, Peru, that has been addressing chronic infant malnutrition for 7 years now, continuously. We started in 2006, and we've been doing it successfully. And I'm here not because I represent CARE, but because I represent that civil society alliance in Peru, which we have been part of and we've been organizing and supporting for the last 7 years. And I'm also, just recently, the chair of the Civil Society Network of the Sun Movement. So I'm also very honored to be occupying that position. Peru is a country that was able to reduce chronic malnutrition from 28% to 14%. And the current government has committed to reducing it to 10%. In 7 years, we've halved it. Now, it's a great accomplishment, but it's also, it's a long-term project. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not a 100-meter dash. It's a marathon, and we need to be prepared for it. And most importantly is the role, and this is where I think the greatest strength of the Sun Movement is the role that civil society plays in all this. Because amongst everything else that civil society organizations do, which is to provide technical assistance to the government, to be able to advocate, to hold the government accountable, to support, to show the successes of the government to the media and the public, is to ensure that there is continuity between one government and another. And that is exactly what happened in Peru. Two very different political parties, but there is continuity. The current government is building on the successes of the previous government. And that, I think, is the important thing that we need to remember. Civil society organizations, and Tony, it's 2,000 organizations, not 1,500, okay? Yeah, it just happened, you see. We have 31 civil society alliances in countries where they're working together, organized, and they're part of the Sun Movement. 81% of the civil society organizations are national organizations, and only 19% are international NGOs. So this is a movement that is led by the countries and controlled by national organizations, and I think that is a tremendous strength. And that's the way I think that it needs to remain in the future, because it's not something coming from the north or from the top down. It's happening right there where we are. All of us go back to our countries and continue the fight. We come back here because these meetings are important. We get energized. We learn, we share experiences, but we have to go back to the battle. And that's where the fight is. Fight in our countries, when we have to ensure that things are moving properly and you build relationships, and that's what we're doing. So my hope for the future is that the Sun Movement is a true movement led by the South, where organizations, civil society organizations, are recognized as key agents of change and development, and where all the other stakeholders and actors support them. I've been in an NGO all my life, and I've been with other NGO people, and we're at the bottom of the pecking order, and that's the truth. It's hardest for us to get meetings with ministers. It's more difficult for us to attend certain meetings. So we need the support of the UN agencies to open doors for us, to introduce us to the ministers, to involve us in key meetings where issues and policies are discussed. We need the support of the donors. Most of the NGOs, of those 2,000 NGOs, civil society organizations, are implementing organizations. We're out there in the field. We know what's going on. We have a tremendous value in being able to bring the knowledge from the field to the policy table. When a policy is not working, we can tell the government why it isn't working, because we're there, we're witnesses. We're the voice for the people that we're serving. That role is really critical. And donors need to understand that NGOs need money to function. We don't make money, we're not for profit. That's the way it works. So we need contracts to do work, and we also need support to do advocacy. And that is really critical. And it's so hard to find funding for advocacy. It's like you have to take time from each of your projects here and there to do it. So it's really important to have the full support. So what my vision is for the future, that we have a really strong movement, country-based, where civil society plays a key role and is supported by all the other actors and is working hand in hand with the government to have zero malnutrition in the world in the next 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Milo. Very, very well said. And just to underline the point, we tend to, I think, too often think of civil society organizations as being only advocates. But I was just in Peru a couple of months ago, and around the world in our work, it is, so much of it is done through, with, and most of all by, local organizations who, after all, know their communities better than anybody else does. And if I could add a point there, too, as we all have to become more innovative in our work, so many of the very practical, innovative solutions to local problems are coming up from the communities and through civil society organizations. And as our ability to communicate with each other through advances in information technology and rapid texting and all of that, there is absolutely no excuse for our all not being more integrated in how we communicate with each other at both the country and the international level as we go forward.
The other question brings on to civil society, and Milo's, I think, gave a very interesting illustration of the importance of civil society in all of this in all of this process, at so many different levels. Respected actors in the process, being listened to, but also being possibly agents of a deeper transformation in different countries by ensuring that, again, there's continuity of policy and valuation of the role of civil society. Milo also, I think, gave another important point, which, and it cropped up in other contributions as well, the learning possibility that we have across the network. If Peru has demonstrated that stunting levels can be reduced from 28% to 14% in 7 years, we must be able to learn from that. That, again, that happened for a particular set of policy reasons, of engagement, and of other things. The same, it won't be applicable elsewhere just by taking the Peruvian example or the Guatemalan example, but there'll be elements of sufficient learning that can be applied to individual countries. And then finally, and that is not just learning, that can provide inspiration as well, and you know, political inspiration, and politicians being understanding that, you know, if it can be done elsewhere, we can get political and other benefits from doing it in our own countries. And then the very final thing I want to just mention is, and again, it's a subtext through much of our conversation, the issue of accountability. Because at the end of the day, this is what accountability, and Michael Anderson, I thought, captured it very well. Accountability requires a constant focus on people, a constant focus on children, and we have to keep asking ourselves the question, what is it that we as a group, individually and collectively, have to do in order that we fulfill our responsibilities of accountability? So, Tony, that's what I heard.